Hey, Bobby Darin fans, Sam Tallarico here with today's installment of Daily Dose of Darin for June 1st, 2023. If you want notifications, you can subscribe to this channel. Some of you might have gotten a notification that there was a new Daily Dose of Darin posted yesterday, but I didn't mean to hit publish. I must have done it by mistake, so sorry about that. You can always email me at lostoldies@yahoo.com, and if you want to know when the next, in fact, somebody did email me saying, hey, I thought this was going to be a daily happening. Where you been? Where is my DDOD? And when I'm looking at that, reading it, DOD backwards is Dodd, as in Dodd Darin, who happens to be my biological half-brother. We share the same father, the late, great Bobby Darin. And it is, so I just got a kick out of that. And it is Bobby Darin's music that we celebrate on this channel. Specifically, recordings made by Bobby Darin in his short, brief life on this planet that may not be known to just the casual fan. And the more devoted fans might be aware of these songs but haven't listened to them in a long time, or maybe by what I say causes you to listen to them and appreciate them in a different way. I can tell you that the song I've chosen today is one of my favorites, and however, this opinion is not shared by two of the most preeminent Bobby Darin biographers out there, specifically Shane Brown, author of Bobby Darin Directions, a Listener's Guide. In fact, Shane actually posted a blog page called The Worst of Bobby Darin and named this record as one of the worst recordings that Bobby Darin ever made, which I totally disagree with. I think there's some worse Bobby Darin material floating around out there, which we're not going to get into today. But also Jeff Blyle, author of That's All, Bobby Darin on Record, Stage, and Screen. And Jeff writes about the song Melodie, that's with an I-E, the song we're going to spotlight today. Jeff writes, Melodie was far from sensational. Bobby Darin was no soul shouter, and the production of Melodie was tailored for a singer more along the lines of the Four Tops' Levi Stubbs. The song certainly deserved more attention than the total indifference with which it was greeted by radio. Well, I certainly agree with that last part about the merits of Melodie. As for Levi Stubbs, he was a member of the Four Tops, and Levi and the Four Tops actually did record Melodie along with the Supremes after Diana Ross left. Gene Terrell was the lead singer, and they put it out on their third duet album, Supremes and Four Tops, called Dynamite in late 1971. Their version of Melodie is a little tepid. I mean, you got powerhouse voices like Terrell's and Stubbs, and they just kind of peters out. And even the instrumental backing is not all that great. But another recording artist put out a release of Melodie, I think around 1972 or 1973. And you might have heard of him. His name was Michael Jackson. But Motown, the label for which all these artists recorded for, didn't see fit to release Michael Jackson's version of Melodie. It was released after Thriller came out in the 80s on a compilation disc, unreleased Motown recordings that had been sitting around in the vaults. Speaking of which, Bobby Darin Estate, if you're listening, if there's material in the vaults, fans want to hear them, let's get it out there, see what you can do. Call me, like I have any influence, yeah. But the Michael Jackson version, his vocals were really suited to the song. Unfortunately, I don't think that the backing instrumentals were all that powerful. It's the instrumental backing vocals on Bobby Darin's version of Melodie that really stand out. It's punchy, it's energetic, it hits you right in the gut. Blyle and Brown both have issues with Bobby Darin's vocals on his version of Melodie, say that he's straining at times, Shane Brown writes. I think it just adds to the power of the song. Is he reaching for those high notes? Yeah, a little bit. But the overall effect, and even though his voice cracks a little bit, Melodie is a symphony. It's one of those earworms, those songs that stick in your head. And it just really, really rocks. Melodie by Bobby Darin was released in April of 1971. Didn't get a lot of airplay on radio stations. Didn't make the Billboard Hot 100. I know there was a station in Shreveport, Louisiana that saw fit to give it airplay, and it showed up on its survey. And this was a recording that Bobby Darin made for Motown Records. So why Motown? I mean, Bobby Darin had recorded for different labels, Atco, Atlantic. He had his Capitol. He had his own label, Direction. Put out a couple albums in 1969 and 1970. Why Motown? Well, part of that reason is because Motown was changing. I think when a lot of people think Motown, they think those snappy records written by the songwriting team of Holland, Dozier, Holland, right? Like the Supremes, Where Did Our Love Go? And the Four Tops, Sugar Pie, Honey Bunch. But Holland, Dozier, Holland left Motown in the late 70s, and Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown, added to their songwriting stable a group of not really prominent songwriters and gave them names like The Clan, notably with a C, not the K, since it was Motown we're talking about, The Sound of Young America, appealing to both black and white audiences, and The Corporation. And a couple of members of these groups wrote the song Melodie. One was named Deke Richards. Don't know too much about him, and except that he co-wrote Love Child for Diana Ross and the Supremes in 1968. And a couple of guys named Jerry Marcelino and Mel Larson. Not household names, not like Holland, Dozier, Holland, right? But they did put out some doo-wop records in the late 50s, recorded as Jerry and Mel, and also some, they recorded as a trio called the Three Honey Drops in the early 60s. And these recordings can be found on Motown. They're not bad. What's significant about all three of these guys, Richards, Marcelino, and Larson, is that they're all white. And they're all, probably by this time, in their 40s, I would think, late 30s, early 40s. And so this just shows how Motown was changing. Berry Gordy wanted to appeal to a more mass audience. So signed artists like Bobby Darin. Joe Marchese writes on his blog page that Bobby Darin always had a desire to do R&B and Motown-inspired songs. In fact, there's a great clip of Bobby Darin duetting with Frida Payne, I think from one of Bobby Darin's TV series appearances, which we'd like to see a release of the Bobby Darin TV shows in their entirety. Again, a state if you're listening. And a slowed down version of Ain't No Mountain High Enough. And the song Melodie, as done by Bobby Darin, to me sounds a little bit like Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell's smoking version of Ain't No Mountain High Enough, or the Four Tops' Bernadette. I hear elements of that in Darin's version of Melodie. So if you like those tunes, I think you're really going to love Melodie. Also, Bobby Darin was not the only artist in the early 70s, the only white artist signed to Motown. Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. They put out an album called Chameleon. Not really the Motown sound either, but more up-tempo than Bobby Darin's self-titled Bobby Darin LP, which was the only studio release by Motown, an LP in 1972. But also Leslie Gore. Remember, It's My Party, I'll Cry If I Want to. Yeah, she put out an album on Motown's Mo West Records in 1972. Very easy listening, pretty pop. And Bobby Darin's Melodie did not make that self-titled Bobby Darin album. It was only released as a 45 at the time and didn't see the light of day on a CD until 2018, when Go Ahead and Back Up included an extended version of Melodie on their Go Ahead and Back Up. I think there was a single version of Melodie put out on another compilation. I'm not sure about that. But the extended mix adds like some symphony instrumentals. It clocks in a little over 4.5 minutes. I think the 2.5 minute punchy version that I'm going to spotlight down below and ask you to listen to and hopefully love is more suited to the style. As for my personal connection to the song, when I was a young lad, I was a huge Motown fan. In 1969 and 1970 And 71, right when around Bobby Darin, my biological father, was signed to Motown, I was writing book reports in school about Motown records. I was fantasizing that I was going to be a singer covering Motown classics, slowed down versions. When I put on a little reel-to-reel tape of the Jackson 5's I Want You Back, kind of like Diana Ross did with Ain't No Mountain High Enough. When I had you to myself, I didn't want you around. And weirdly enough, a cover of Diana Ross and the Supremes, Someday We'll Be Together, which Bobby Darin did record and put it on the flip side of Melodie. So it's one of those, wow, eerie, weird kind of psychic connection things. I've always maintained I never really felt anything special about Bobby Darin. But this was one of those things after my discovery. I'm like, whoa. So anyway, I do hope that you enjoy this melody and this daily dose of Darin. I will try to do more videos as time permits. Time doesn't always permit. Man, oh man. And I hope you enjoy, like I say. And if you want to get in touch with me, lostoldies@yahoo.com. Thanks for watching.